Kurt Angle wants his drugs back after they're stolen by a pair of con artist demon hunters. In an improvised comedy that's so funny, it'll make you want to suck your own. We watched Chasing Molly today on...
The f*** is this?
Hello, however you wish to self-identify, and welcome back to the is this, where we dive through DVD bins, sort through streaming apps to find the weird, the bizarre, and the unloved. My name is your host, Kaz Lesgard. My name is your host, Kaz Lesgard? Really? I've been doing this often, and I'm still... Fuck it. From now on, my name is your host, Kaz Lesgard. I'm your host, Kaz Lesgard, and joining me always is my co-host, Jameson Rafter.
I am not your co-host. I am co-host Jameson Rafter.
All right, well, that's fine.
You're your host, and I am just co-host.
Okay, but I'm going to need you to refer to me as your host, Kaz Lesgard, from now on.
You got it, your host, Kaz Lesgard.
And welcome back to the second annual WrestleMania! That's right, for the entire month of May, we are watching movies that star wrestlers in them. We did it last year, and it was fun, and we're doing it again.
Yeah, we did it before the dark times, in the long ago.
Yeah, we're all about that nostalgia now. We're trying to remember the days where we could live unencumbered by life. Anyway, but Jameson, this is exciting. It's our second annual something.
It is actually, yeah. It was our first ever theme month, and we decided that we were going to do WrestleMania again this year because, against better judgment, they did the actual WrestleMania earlier this year. So, who are we to judge?
Just to make things less confusing, there are two things I'm going to have to insist you do this episode. The first one is refer to me strictly as your host, Kaz Lesgard. The second one is we really need to hit that May in WrestleMania. Otherwise, people are just going to think we're talking about WrestleMania.
Well, our webcams aren't working at the moment, but I swear to you, your host, Kaz Lesgard, I am flexing like a motherfucker when I say that. So I think I'm getting it off in the physical performance of it.
Sure. Oh, okay, that's good. But this is a podcast.
That's right. With a visual element to it where we don't have face cam. So again, people, just imagine me completely ripped doing awesome flexing moves when I say WrestleMania.
If you could also say the word flex, that would help all the listeners at home know that when you're flexing.
How many stipulations is this episode gonna have, your host, Kaz Lesgard?
I don't know.
This feels like that drinking game where you have to keep track of 12 different rules and they can change on a dime.
We'll see by the end. We'll see how many stipulations we have by the end. Hey, before we get into our movie, Jameson, did you want to do a round of probably should have mentioned that? Probably should have mentioned that, Rob.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, this is all on you.
Fuck!
Well, no, you told me that you had something that you wanted to say.
I did, yeah. I've had two, probably should have mentioned that in the chamber for the last... I'm going into this with two, probably should have mentioned that.
That's fine. There's not a hell of a lot to say about the movie that we're doing today, so this intro is going to be short anyway. So, by all means, fill us up with knowledge that we should have known already by now.
With knowledgeable goodness. Well, so the two topics that I have to go over, one is for Aspen Extreme, and the other one is for the movie Out Here.
God, talk about a lifetime ago. Fucking Aspen Extreme.
I know, right?
How long have you been sitting on that one?
Why won't it stay dead?
Our most popular episode ever.
It's up there, in terms of views on the YouTube channel, it's behind only, Argento's Dracula at last check. But yeah, it's something amazing, 2,200 views or something like that. That's insane to me, considering we did not really enjoy that movie that much.
I bet we're gonna find out one day it's just one person who just has that on repeat or something. Anyway, what do you got? What do you got for me? What knowledge do you got? What knowledge do you got for a movie that most casual fans of this show probably don't remember that we cover?
So, going over the cast list of that movie, I really only focused on the two leads, who were Paul Gross and Peter Berg, because none of the names really jumped out at me when I was doing my research. Yeah, a bunch bunch of journeyman actors that I'd never really heard of before. And because I'm still riding that high from when I was going down through that YouTube rabbit hole of cyber movie trailers, Cyber Bandits is still like weighing heavily on my mind because its star was Martin Kemp. And keep looking at this guy, I kept thinking to myself, he looks like a young Nick Cage, but there's something else to him. I must have seen him somewhere else before. And then it hit me. He's in Aspen Extreme.
Yes. Is he?
Hey, did you know this?
No, I don't even know who Martin Kemp is. And that's rare for me, because I normally know most actors.
Alright. Martin Kemp is the actor who plays Franz in it. You know, the guy who would be like the sports movie rival if this were like a typical sports movie.
Yeah, I think the problem is it's been so long. It's been like over a year. I'm conflating the evil German from Aspen Extreme with the evil German from Hot Dog, so I might have to go back and listen to our own episodes.
Martin Kemp is not primarily known as an actor. He is a musician. He is the bassist for Spandau Ballet, who are probably best known for I know this much is true. And like, if you watch that music video, eagle-eyed viewers will notice him right near the end, kicking a sweet bass line to that sexy, sultry love ballad.
So he's the bassist?
He's the bassist for Spandau Ballet, yes.
Wow. Talk about your fucking obscure digs. That's...
But wouldn't that have been amazing to know going into Aspen Extreme?
What's that song even called? Because I just know it as ba 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 ba.
True.
It's called True?
As in, I know this much is true. Sorry, folks, I haven't warmed up.
What's your next one? What's your next film trivia dealy-do?
The next one was for the movie Out Here, but it's in my old notebook, which I left at the Podstream Studios, which has since been on lockdown.
Oh, this notebook that I have sitting in front of me right here? What page is it on? Should I read it?
If you can read my fucking chicken scratch and go through that, like, laundry list of, that's gonna be like a clip episode going through that notebook.
Probably. Alright, you know what? Let's, there's notes in here. There's notes in here for movies, for episodes we haven't even aired. You know what? Let's put a pin in that and come back to it, because we are, now we're at the point of the intro where I probably should mention the movie, so.
Should I at least, try to tease, what it's about a little bit?
Sure, but if you don't remember, then.
Would it surprise you to learn that the movie Out Here was somewhat of a hit?
In what context is the movie a hit? Is it big in Japan?
On the opening weekend, it was like a top-grossing movie. But also, let me just get out my thoughts here. I wish I had my notebooks. Because the year that it came out was the same year that the NHL had its lockout, like its players' lockout between the managers and the players. There was no hockey on that year, so beer sales across Canada were down. So Kokanee was really the only one that had a bit of an uptick in profits, and that was largely because of the success and the awareness drummed up by the movie Out Here. So even though it was just panned by critics and not that much of a financial success as a movie, the beer company who bankrolled the whole thing considered it a success because among all their competitors, they actually had a little bit of an upsale in business.
All right, well there you go. Well, I have no idea where that is. I just went through your entire notebook and I can't find that, so I'm going to assume that you made it up. All right, moving on. Okay, so last year on WrestleMania, we covered 3 movies that had wrestlers in it. For the first movie of the second annual WrestleMania, we're gonna do something.
Why do you change your inflection every time you do that?
Because I don't want to scream it. I don't want to blow out my voice. So I'll just say the May part of it a little different, and then hopefully people will know which WrestleMania I'm talking about. See right there. I was talking about the actual WrestleMania, because it wasn't like WrestleMania. That's my current favorite.
You alright there?
I don't know yet. Anyway, yeah, so last year, the 3 movies we covered were all action flicks, which are primarily the type of movies that you see wrestlers in when they transfer over to movies. But we wanted to switch it up a little bit this time around. So, for the second annual WrestleMania, we are covering probably the genre that I think is probably second in terms of what wrestlers pop up in. We're doing a comedy.
Excellent.
Because we haven't done enough shitty comedies on this show lately. This is like our 3rd in a row.
I've forgotten what actual comedy is like.
So today's movie is Chasing Molly.
Oh, I love Chasing Amy. Wait.
This is going to be the most recent film we've ever done on this show. Jameson, you want to hedge a guess as to when this movie was released?
2020?
Not quite.
Like, not enough shitty things have happened in 2020 yet?
This movie was released in May of 2019, which means this was released when we were doing the first WrestleMania.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, not really cool, it's a coincidence.
Yeah, it's more of a I don't know. I'm straining for shit to say about this, because really, there's not going to be a ton of, because there's only two famous people in it that you've heard of, and the director and everyone else didn't really do anything of note, which is why we're sort of padding this intro out a little bit more than usual. So anyway, moving on. So Chasing Molly comes from writer and director Josh Sutherland, known for a couple of short films, but he's mainly a visual effects editor, and he has done that on films including, but not limited to, Take Shelter, Pirates of the Caribbean 4, X-Men First Class, Looper, and The Avengers.
Oh wow, I like a lot of those movies.
Those are the good movies.
And Pirates of the Caribbean 4.
Yeah, I think he has a Twilight movie in there or something. No, actually you're quite right. Pirates of the Caribbean 4 is one of the worst ones. But so he's the writer and director of that. The co-writer and also the star of this movie, who plays the main character of Molly, is a comedian named Shelley Pack. She really has done nothing of note. She's been in a few episodes of TV. She was in an episode of The Drew Carey Show and Private Practice. She was a correspondent for G-Word, which is a comical show about saving the environment.
Okay.
So I can only imagine what that's like. I'm going to picture it's comedians going around talking to actual experts who legitimately want to reduce carbon emissions and people's footprints and stuff like that, and then comedians come in and try to make it funny, and it probably isn't.
So like the Daily Show formula, except not funny.
Her co-star in this is an actor named Jim Cashman, who plays Atticus in this. He's another person that you haven't heard of because he, again, hasn't really been in much. He's been in a few TV episodes. He was on Just Shoot Me, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He did a few voices for Mike Tyson Mysteries. He wrote a few SNL bits. He wrote a few episodes of The Looney Tunes Show. Did you ever see this?
Merry Melodies, or?
It was like a recent reboot of Looney Tunes, and they live in the suburbs, and Bugs and Daffy are like roommates and stuff, and they go to like the DMV and stuff. It was very weird.
No, I haven't seen that. My regular life is boring enough as it is. I don't need to see the cartoon characters with boring lives like that.
Something weirdly cathartic about seeing Porky Pig file his taxes. I don't know.
Sylvester after having to apply for a job, and the pitfalls of dating when you're a Wile E. Coyote.
Well, he wrote a few episodes of that. All right. Moving on to the people you actually have heard of, the two, let's call them stars of this film, are Felicia Day.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Who doesn't like Felicia Day?
From the Guild and Mystery Science Theater 3000. She's carved out an interesting niche because she sort of primarily does web-based series. So it's kind of rare to see her in a movie.
Wonder what they got on her. What brought her out of her nice little web series cocoon?
I'm not even sure if this movie even hit theaters at all. This movie has no presence online. There's not even a Wikipedia page for it.
That's kind of our specialty, right? that was the same thing that happened last year with WrestleMania. We found a movie that had like no entry on Wikipedia, like it was only available on YouTube, and now it's gone.
And now it's gone.
We're like the kiss of death for these movies.
Hopefully so. Well, we've buried the lead enough because it's been so long we haven't even mentioned which wrestler is in this. So playing the role of Mr. Black, we have the American hero himself, King Kurt Angle.
Oh, he sucks.
I know that because I read the Wikipedia page on Kurt Angle, and I know that's what you're supposed to say when Kurt Angle comes into the ring.
You don't even have to say. That's what his song does for you.
So it's been a year later, and I still know basically nothing about wrestling or wrestlers. So, Jameson, can you tell us anything about Kurt Angle?
The things that come to mind immediately sort of dovetail somewhat in relation to Stone Cold Steve Austin. His gimmick was that he would like go up against authority figures, and he was just like a beer chugging everyman.
Stone Cold was.
Yeah, Stone Cold was. Like, the one son of his that I think people, like, talk about the most, was him driving a beer truck and spraying, like, Vince McMahon and everyone else in the ring with beer. Kurt Angle did something very similar, only instead of beer, it was milk. Because he was sort of billed as this, like, wholesome, all-American, like, take your vitamins, work out hard, don't take any dangerous substances kind of Olympian athlete. So, yeah, he sprayed everyone with milk. So that's the thing that sticks out in my mind the most.
I don't want to see Vince McMahon get doused with any sort of liquid, but if I had to choose, I would pick beer over milk anytime. I don't need to see Vince wet and creamy, thank you very much.
I'm sure, like, I'm not doing his story justice. I think maybe he had, like, a tremendous health scare at one point, and he came back and was embraced by the WWE community. And I think he runs, like, he did run the NXT market for a little while. Or Raw. Don't quote me on that, though.
Kurt Angle is interesting because when I was casually watching wrestling in my late teens, I remember he was on it. So he's been wrestling for quite a while, actually. So I remember he's like a legitimate Olympic athlete, and he brought like his actual gold medals into the ring with him, showing everything off. Yeah, he was sort of like the all-American golden boy. I think that role kind of eventually got eclipsed by John Cena.
Yeah, I think much like John Cena, fans are really, if they're meant to be like the face, like the good guy face, like the clear good guy, fans tend to hate him. Even though they're the face, is the hero. If they're like presented as, oh, this is like the guy who you should be like, he's aspirational, he's Superman, people are automatically gonna hate him.
All right, cool. Well, that's everything I have on this. So yeah, let's hunker down on the couch in our respective bunkers and make sure the windows are double boarded to fend off the zombie invasion, and let's watch whatever the hell Chasing Molly is.
Yeah, I'm in the mood for a good laugh. Let's get it on.
Hopefully this movie delivers. Based on the last couple of hilarious movies we've watched, my hopes aren't high. Largely based on the fact that no one on the internet seems to know this movie exists, despite the fact that it came out last year. But that's why we're here, to let you know.
Exactly. Now we'll know, and now the people will know.
Alright, cool. Alright, I'll talk to you soon, Jameson.
Alright, see you soon. Stay tuned, everyone.
Stay tuned. And we're back.
We are back.
That was both the most recent movie we've watched on this show and easily the shortest movie we've ever watched on this show, because that was an hour and 25 minutes, but you can subtract an easy 15 minutes from that runtime, because that 15 minutes of that runtime was just scenes we saw earlier that they just decided to show in full again.
Yeah, if you want to call that as like the shortest movie, I would say like narrative-wise, yes, that was a 3-minute long short film.
Oh gosh.
And the rest was just fucking character workshop at the comedy club.
Yes. So yeah, I mentioned in the intro that Shelley Pack, who's the writer and the star of this movie, is a comedian. About 20 minutes into this movie, it became very clear that what Chasing Molly is the barest bones of a screenplay that she filled with all of her comedian friends. Every supporting role in this movie is played by a struggling comedian who is trying to break it big in Hollywood. Except for the handful of roles that are not played by comedians who aren't played apparently by actors. A good chunk of this cast appears to be people that they just found on the street.
Like that scene where she goes up to the neighborhood asking people if she could just use their phone. Like, those were just like legit people that she didn't know, asking if she could use their phone for a scene.
There's a few locations in this movie too that I'm fairly certain weren't scouted by anyone on the film. I think they just, I think you said it best. I think there's a scene in a club where I'm fairly certain they just managed to sneak a camera into the club and then just film the club with the actors walking around. Like, that didn't seem like a movie set.
Fucking happened happened in that club. There was no character interaction. I don't even think there was any dialogue in that sequence. It was just, well, we got to get from one end of this club to the other. Let's just film our character going through that.
This was a really hard movie to take notes for because basically every scene is exactly the same. The main character goes somewhere, she meets a new person, and then it's 5 to 7 minutes of improv. That's it. That's the entire movie.
Yes, generously, that is what the movie is. I think, my impression was that these were, very outlandish comedic characters that you would see as sort of like a bit recurring role, maybe on something like Workaholics or It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, or any kind of Comedy Central show that they'll just, give, one season of, a comedian will get, a pickup series for one season, and they'll just litter it with all their comedian friends and cameos, and then, maybe they had, a semi-long run, they had, some bit of popularity, and maybe there was, a cult following around it, so they would go to, these Comic-Cons and say, hey, guess what? We're making a movie. We're announcing that, all, these bit characters, maybe not the main ones, but the bit ones, are getting their own movie. That's the vibe I got from this. All these characters that would work really well in 10-minute sprints or guest spots in something, but not mains, not leads.
No. The main vibes I got off of this movie were, this definitely had, the feeling, this scenario might have worked a little bit better, you're right, as a TV show with the two main characters who are sort of criminal type. We'll go into the plot a little bit deeper in a second here, but yeah.
It won't take long.
They're kind of low blue-collar criminals, and then I could certainly see every episode them kind of going around, getting themselves in situations and then trying to talk their way out of it. You're right, there is kind of an Always Sunny vibe to it, only not nearly as funny or shocking. It tries to be very shocking, but it just comes off as childish.
Yeah. And I think that's sort of the problem when you have, a room full of comedians, and, all the comedians that I've ever met, they're all brilliant as far as, structuring a joke, but they may not necessarily be, the best writers to follow, a narrative. Or to really know when they should let their scenes end. Because, they'll keep going and going, mining material until they just drive those subjects into the ground. And then it stops being funny. And then it might get funny again, but, they should really know when to call it quits and when to, know where to lean in for the kill, when to pull back. Because having, a 10-minute set at a comedy club is very different for writing a scene.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain the screenplay to this movie was about 10 pages long. And then the majority of the scenes are the main writer and actor getting together with her comedian friends and then explaining the bare bones of what's supposed to happen in the scene, and then them just improving. The majority of this movie appears to be them just making up the dialogue off of the top of their heads, and every once in a while, a really funny line is said, or a funny delivery.
Most of these comedic performers, they know what they're going for. They tend to, they really embody the character they're trying to put out. Most of them do. So, there's a few clunkers here and there. A lot of them just kind of got on because I think they were friends of the star. So, she said, oh, I'll give you a role. But I disagree with you only in that you say that, yes, this movie is, predominantly improvised. I think maybe all the comedians were approached to say, do you have, something, I don't want to write a full screenplay. I don't want to write a full movie. Do you want to be in it? Do you have, an idea for a scene? Do you want to be, is there a character you can do? Oh, yeah, I've been working on this crazy monk weapons dealer. Yeah, I can, I'll be in your movie. Yeah, I have this character where I'm a drug dealer who sells himself for drugs, but I also have 3 kids and I'm a stay-at-home dad. Yeah, I'll write a scene for you.
So your thinking is that the filmmakers of this movie were even lazier than I'm giving them credit for. They didn't even come up with the characters. They made the actors come up with the characters.
Oh, I mean, if there's one thing I learned from Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David, and just hearing them talk about how they found success, they really did not. Well, they cared about the writing, but they really did not want to work.
Yeah, and occasionally this movie gave me some Seinfeld vibes as well, too, because it is a very sort of laid-back project. No one is really acting in this. I wouldn't say there's a single character in this that gives a performance in the traditional sense. I don't, but the characters show up and they all have names, but I don't get the feeling any of them are embodying the characters that they're playing, except, weirdly enough, Kurt Angle. I'd say Kurt Angle is definitely playing a character.
Absolutely. Like, he is the only one there who I could say was genuinely acting and, like, embodying a role and, like, finding his truth, you know? I really do feel like all the other comedians, like, they knew what they were going for, but, like, they weren't really embodying something so much as they were making fun and just, like, being a kooky, crazy character because we're comedians.
I bet like, the cast and crew screening for this movie was hilarious. I bet everyone was killing themselves laughing, because more than anything, this movie feels like a big in-joke that you as a viewer aren't privy to. It feels like watching someone else's friends' home movie.
Absolutely. This completely reminds me of all the times where I would get a camcorder and my buddies in high school and we would make a home movie, and it wasn't necessarily for anybody else, but like we were having a blast making it. I guess like the cast party at the end was fun, and the writing process was a hoot. But yeah, as far as like putting it together and putting it out there for us as the viewers, it's like, what? I don't know any of these people. I mean, most of it. It's like going to a comedy club, you know? There's some good comedians there. There's some bad comedians there. You know, it's a mixed bag that you're getting out of this.
Alright, so let's try and break down what little plot that we're giving here. There are two things that I really want to spend some time talking about. The very beginning of this movie and the very ending are outrageously confusing, and I don't know what happened in either case. So let's break down the plot here. All right, so the movie opens with the opening credits.
My God, the opening credits, I thought like those heavily stylized, like the credits that you see to a Marvel movie, like that they're all like...
What Marvel movie are you seeing?
Well, like, take a look at the credits to those movies where like they're sweeping through galaxies and interweaving textures and like silhouettes of the characters, and they're highly stylized. That's what this opening looked like, and it looked like a music video to me. Before the opening titles, before Chasing Molly appeared on screen, there's that woman who's lighting these candles against a shrine that had nothing to do with the rest of the fucking movie.
So there's I kept waiting for that to come back. So the opening titles of this movie, we see lots of Chinese imagery, and we see a woman from behind. I'm assuming it's a Chinese woman, and she's praying at some sort of altar, and she lights this incense, and she's praying, and the opening titles are happening over her, and it shows the title of the movie and the actors that are in it, and then something happens, and the woman disappears, and it looks like her soul or her essence gets sucked into something. And then we get the title, Chasing Molly, and the movie begins, and we never go back.
And it's never addressed again.
Except maybe at the very end, but we'll get to there because we have the entire rest of the movie to talk about. But just remember, listeners, that this movie opens with a random Chinese woman getting sucked into nothingness. Yes, that's important.
And it doesn't factor again at all into this movie.
Plot of this movie, Chasing Molly. We have our two main characters. We have Molly and we have Atticus, and they are hucksters. They're con artists, and they have a business called demon cleaning. They sucker people into coming to their house and getting rid of ghosts, and they're transparently bad at it, but it's okay because all of their customers are complete idiots that can't seem to see through this.
Yeah, except for like the one member of the household who does, but nobody listens to them anyways.
So they're going to a variety of houses, and they're in there. They're saying that they're getting rid of the demons, but what they're really doing is they're robbing people, and they're grabbing personal items, and they're just sort of like stuffing them into bags and stuffing them in the back of their trunk. And one of the houses that they get called to do a demon cleansing, they get called to like this warehouse with these two criminal thugs who are underlings for Mr. Black, who's Kurt Angle, who's the main gangster, who we see in an early scene whacking a dude by shooting him in the head.
Kurt Angle's scene, I think, should have come before the credits, or at least let the movie breathe a little bit following these scam artists, like supernatural ghost hunters or whatever.
Well, it couldn't have come before the credits, Jameson, because we needed that integral scene where the Chinese woman disappears.
It just seemed to me that Kurt Angle showed up into this movie a little too early because it's sandwiched between a scene of Molly and Atticus, like, sitting on the couch talking to their clients.
How many times did you say Bloody Mary?
Sir, where is the doll now?
Guesstimate.
Did the doll ask you to play a game?
Ooh, okay.
Do not say yes.
Well, that's your problem.
Never say yes to a doll's game.
If they said we'll be back, then they'll definitely be back. You can take that to the bank. Your wife stares at you while you're sleeping? Yeah, that could definitely be paranormal activity. Honestly, that's where it starts most of the time.
Ma'am, put down the Ouija board. I need you to put it down and do not ask it any more questions.
And them being in the homes of their clients. We had no indication that, like, his two gangster underlings would be afraid of ghosts or afraid of, like, the guy who they just murdered haunting the warehouse. It's a 10-minute introductory, or 10-second introductory scene of Kurt Angle, and it's right in the moment, or it's right at the beginning where we're just getting introduced to our two mains. It seems like an odd place to put that scene.
Yeah, and again, it seems like maybe there should have been a scene where the two thugs are alone in the warehouse and maybe they hear a spooky noise and that's what makes them call the demon hunters. But there's no setup to any of these moments. It's just, well, the characters need to be here.
It's just clear to me that in addition to like 15 comedians, they needed one actual screenwriter on this movie.
I find it amazing that this movie is as short as it is, and yet it is both missing scenes that would help explain the plot and includes scenes that we've already seen before multiple times to build up to like a feature-length running time. And it only just barely makes a feature-length running time. So it's like, if you needed to include some more scenes, why not include scenes that make the scenes you have make sense? But
yeah, and like, I don't mean to like come off like an asshole about this, because I'm sure like all the people working on this movie, they knew what it was. Like, they didn't care for like narrative flow or whatever. Absolutely not. All I'm saying is like to maybe to improve it a little bit, to help it. I want to help them. I would have gone the extra mile to at least like flown this all together to have like some semblance of sense put into it. They didn't care, but like not in like a they're incompetent kind of way. It's just it wasn't their priority.
Yeah, I wouldn't. You've hit on something there that I completely agree with, Jameson. I don't think the filmmakers behind this movie are incompetent. I just don't think they cared. I think they made the movie that they wanted to make, and then there was a collective shrug of, yeah, good enough. Yeah, we don't need a second take for this. Yeah, that's fine. Moving on.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And weirdly enough, I know I'm veering away from describing the plot here, but weirdly enough, I kind of respect the movie for that. Yeah. I mean, it's not terribly good, but it has such a laissez-faire sort of attitude to it. I kind of don't care that the movie doesn't give a shit.
Oh man, like one of my favorite things in the world is to just get all my buddies together and like, let's put on a show. Like, let's make a stupid movie just for the hell of it. That's awesome. I can totally get behind doing something like this myself.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, they run their scam on the two thugs and they're running around and they're stealing a bunch of stuff, and then when they get back to their house, they go through all their stolen loot and they find a china teapot that is filled with MDMA, or Molly. Hey, look at that. Hey, the main character's name is Molly, and that's the name of a drug. Whoa, good writing.
Holy confession, I didn't put that together.
Did you just get that right now?
I take it all back. This is a clever movie.
Come on, man. This movie has layers. So Molly freaks out for like half a second, and she's like, "Oh, we're gonna get in lots of trouble. We need to give these drugs back." And then almost immediately just sort of dismisses that and says, "Nah, let's just sell them. They need to test the drugs first." So they go to their friend Rawhide. Good character names, and
I mean, he's no skullfucker, but
no, he's no skullfucker. We'll get there. Was Rawhide also a drug dealer? I think I wasn't sure what that character was supposed to be.
I think he was either another drug dealer or just like a friend of theirs who knew a lot about drugs because he did a lot of drugs. Because he will openly ingest whatever the fuck is put in front of him. He had one of my favorite lines in the movie.
What I did here was I paired this train wreck, which is a high-grade indica, with these Totino's gourmet pepperoni pizza rolls, girl. You like that? Check this out. I'm just gonna sprinkle a little Keef on here. I call that Kiefer Sutherland. Yeah.
Kiefer Sutherland is too intense for my taste.
Yeah, the scene where we're introduced to Rawhide, they open on a shot of just a joke that it just flat out is just stolen from shit from the internet. This is how lazy this movie is there are numerous times where they do jokes. I'm all like, they didn't write that joke, that's just a meme. And they open with Rawhide's coffee maker, but he's plastered a naked photo of, I guess, Kim Kardashian on it.
Oh yeah, that Kim breaks the internet picture.
Yeah, and the coffee is coming out of her butt, so it looks like a stream of diarrhea, and it's all like, you didn't come up with that. I saw that on the internet however long ago that photo shoot was. Like, that's not an original idea. They are really proud of it though, because they keep on that shot of the coffee coming out of Kim's ass for a very uncomfortably long time. Anyway, Rawhide tries the Molly, and then he freaks out in the back room, and he has the typical movie drug trip where he's running around and he's acting crazy and not acting at all like a person on drugs actually would.
But that's the point. This is like some super new drug, Super Molly.
He keeps saying that he's trying to suck his own dick.
Ooh, wee. I can suck my own dick.
No, Rawhide, no you cannot. That's not humanly possible.
Oh, yeah. I can. If I go back in time, if I can go faster, I can do it. I can reverse time, just like Superman. Save Lois Lane.
Well, he's really going for it.
I can taste the tip. I can suck my own dick.
But we never, not that I want to see him suck his own dick in this scene. I mean, like, not that I wouldn't watch that, but, timing. Like, time and place. But, I mean, they don't even try that. They just kind of awkwardly have him go around a stripper pole that he has and then loudly exclaim that he sucked his own dick, or he almost sucked his own dick.
Yeah, it's implied that he has, and that's like the sort of like cutaway to reaction of the video where everyone goes, oh, that's crazy. Oh, that's nasty. I can't believe he did it.
Didn't even take his pants off. Like, that's how lazy this movie is they have this scene where a character does something shocking that then turns into a viral video that I guess they use as advertisement to sell the Molly to people, and it sells out within a day. But if what you're doing in the movie is filming a quote-unquote shocking thing where the guy is doing all these lewd acts on himself, at least make it look like the guy is actually doing something shocking. This is just a fully clothed man running around in circles, and then everyone who sees the video reacts like, whoa, this is wild.
Yeah, also, if you're going to imply that, like, something has gone viral, it's probably a good idea to actually have it being shown, like that video actually shown on, like, a computer or a mobile device. I mean, there are parts where someone is holding, like, the phone to someone else and saying, hey, check this out. But the footage that we see is not of them looking at, like, that scene on a phone. It cuts to, like, the actual shot that was filmed in the house of them doing it because they didn't know how to fucking, cut a frame properly and superimpose it on, like a green screen on a phone.
Not only that, but, like, it's one of the easiest things that they could have filmed. They film the scene the regular way with the camera, and then they have, like, a second AD off to the side filming it with his phone, and then there you go.
Then you upload that to YouTube.
That's the YouTube video.
Yeah.
It's the easiest fucking thing that they could have done, and they chose to. So then they go into a montage where they're selling the drugs. This is a weird thing that happened during this montage. So Molly goes off, and we see Molly in a variety of locations, giving people the pill, and then getting the money from people. Atticus, however, starts off the montage going up to one car, knocking on the window, looking around, and then it cuts to, like, Molly in, like, 5 different locations, and then, like, 2 minutes later, we cut back to Atticus, and he's still by that car, and the payoff for that is that eventually some dude in the backseat rolls down the window and then gives him money for one pill, and then he walks off. There was no punchline to that scene.
Lists of characters that she meets in this sequence are like, a bickering kitchen staff, people in the middle of like a porn casting shoot, these lesbians who are apparently like high on catnip or whatever.
I don't know what was going on there. So there's like a porn director and like an amateur porn star, and she comes in, and like the second she realizes what's going on, she does like a big thing to like the cameras, all like, no, porn is wrong. It's just like, oh man, don't porn shame people. Like the porn industry is filled with people who are doing that for their own sense of self-empowerment. So I don't know. That was the one part of the movie where I'm all like, get off your high horse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, who are you to judge?
Who are you to judge this lady with giant fake breasts? Anyway.
But in this sequence where she is meeting like these cavalcaded characters, I was thinking to myself, are we going to go back and revisit these characters? At this point, when I still thought that this movie was going to be a movie, if this is going to be something like The Hangover, where she retraces her steps to go back to the people that she sold the drugs to, it would make sense just to revisit these characters in like, now that they're all high, and like what have they been up to since they took the drugs? You know, that's why we're being introduced to these characters. If that were the case, it would make sense to like cut out these scenes of her actually selling the drugs to these characters because they're already really over the top and ridiculous. It would make more sense to show them later on.
Yeah, but if we went back to these characters, they would have had to come up with new jokes, and that's a lot of work.
Well, the other thing is, like, none of these characters come back.
No, none of them do.
I mean, there's enough fucking characters in this movie already, so these were just, shit, I have more comedian friends than I thought of. I better write them into this opening montage here.
None of these characters come back, and yet almost all of them get like a little blurb in the ending credits that tells us what ended up happening to them. And I'm like, I don't care about like the porn director. That was a character I didn't need to revisit at all.
Yeah.
And then some characters that I genuinely wanted to know what happened to them don't get one of them. I don't know. So somewhere in this montage, even though we as an audience don't see it, at some point in time, Atticus ends up getting kidnapped by Kurt Angle. And yeah, Kurt Angle calls Molly and says, I got your friend here, I got your partner, you have, what did he give her, 24 hours or 48 hours?
Whatever.
I don't know, because it seems like more time passed than the time that he gave them, but he said, yeah, you have until this time to bring me my drugs back, but of course, she sold all the drugs, so Atticus spends the rest of the movie in Kurt Angle's limo, and the remainder of the movie is Molly going around trying to make money, trying to get more drugs, and when that doesn't work, there's other get-rich-quick schemes that she does, and she keeps meeting wacky variety of characters that come into one scene and then disappear. She gets sexually harassed a lot. That was one well that they kept going back to, is creepy dudes coming into the scene and touching her inappropriately.
You gotta wonder, which of those scenes, because I think some of them were like, seeking into some of her own stand-up, and some of it was like her male co-stars, doing their character work. I don't know where the line was between like what was her material and what was the male actress kind of pushing it a little.
You know what I will say, for being the writer and main star of this movie, for being sort of like the driving creative force behind it, Shelley Pack is a very gracious co-star in the sense that when she's in these scenes with these other comedians, she more or less just gives the stage to them. And she's playing off of what they're saying, but she's never usually the focus of attention in these scenes. She almost always gives the focus of attention to her co-stars, and I will give her credit for that, because when you're making an independent movie like this and you're the writer and star, it's very easy to be all like, me, but she really sort of spread the attention out, and I'll give her credit for that. That was a classy move, I think.
Yeah, I think the character of Molly, do you think that benefits like these shared scenes with these other really broad, kooky characters? Because in her own scenes, she's kind of sarcastic, and then she meets like these outlandish characters, and then she becomes the audience cipher, until like she herself, I think the actress on set thought of like just improvise like a good zinger in the moment. So I didn't really know where she was embodying the character and where like the comedian in her just came out.
Well, I wouldn't even say she was embodying any sort of character. I think very much this is just Shelley Pack, the comedian. It's sort of like the classic comedian, not vanity project, but like they wrote it around her, like a better movie that is filled with like improv that is based on the strength of a comedian would be something like Trainwreck. And Trainwreck is a movie that has its problems, but I don't think Amy Schumer does a bad job in that movie, but she's not stretching as an actor. She's just playing Amy Schumer, and that's very much what Shelley Pack is doing here as well.
So is Shelley Pack like a huge up-and-comer in the LA comedy scene?
I have no idea. I did a search for her on YouTube, and there's not really like a lot of any of her material out there. She has a couple of demo reels, but other than that, I wasn't able to find any stand-up sets. So I'm assuming if I dig a little deeper, I can probably find something that she's done. But this is
then good on her for her like pioneering spirit to like just like make a movie yourself.
This is truly like an independent movie, and it very clearly is people in the industry getting tired of not being able to book anything, and then they just said, fuck it, we have a weekend, let's write a movie, and then they got their friends together and they filmed it, and somehow they got Kurt Angle to be in it, and
Felicia Day, and totally like my apartment can double as the police station.
I have a feeling Felicia Day was an easier get than Kurt Angle. Felicia Day strikes me as the type of person, also like clearly they had Felicia Day for an afternoon, because she's only in 2 scenes, and it looks like it's the same parking lot that she's in. Why, okay, since we're talking about Felicia Day, why in her introductory scene, so Felicia Day plays Atticus's insane girlfriend that he's dating, but he doesn't like, and Molly doesn't like her. And when we first see her, she's in a parking lot, she's in her car, and she's watching Molly through binoculars, and she's peeing into a big juice jug. And yet another thing that we are shown that isn't explained. Why was she camping out?
She's stalking Molly because she believes that because Molly and Atticus are so close and do everything together, she assumes that they're hooking up.
Yeah, and why wouldn't they? Because they have such natural chemistry. They really look like lifelong friends that are holding out, that have like deep repressed feelings for each other. That really comes across in both of their performances.
Do I detect a note of sarcasm, Kaz?
No, none whatsoever.
But yeah, so she's accusing them of like sneaking around on her, so she's, I guess, like keeping tabs on Molly because she can't find Atticus because he's kidnapped, so she's stalking out the convenience store where their mutual friend Rawhide works, hoping that Molly will show up.
And then she does, and then there's like one scene where she yells at Molly, and then there's another scene where she yells at Molly, and then she lists off a bunch of sex acts that her and Atticus do.
You probably did everything Atticus likes. You probably had a front row seat when he did his penis on parade routine, huh?
First of all, I hate parades, and I certainly wouldn't invite a penis to one.
Tell me you didn't let him play patty cake, baker's crack, huh?
No, we never played patty cake, baker's crap.
Liar! You loved a peekaboo ball sack. I know you did.
Never have I ever played around a peekaboo ball sack.
You let him Peter Pan you.
What's being Peter Panned?
It's when you play with a stinker bell until he flies.
Hey, why do all these gross things have confusing children's titles?
And then Molly tries to give her a laptop filled with information that will save Atticus's life somehow, and then Felicia Day screams and she smashes the laptop, and that's a wrap on Felicia Day, everyone. We needed that name above the title. Who really needs to bring in that.
Yeah, she screams like a crazy person, flips off the camera, and then gets in her car and books it. I did your favor, Shelley. Never call me again.
At the very least, Kurt Angle was in different locations, so you knew that he wanted to be in the movie and he had to keep coming back on different shooting days. They clearly had Felicia Day for an afternoon.
Probably ran into her at like going into that convenience store and be like, "Oh shit, Felicia Day, we're making a movie. Could you just spare us like 10 minutes?"
I really wouldn't be surprised. So what are some of the other characters we meet? So we have I wrote down business-oriented Mexican gangbangers.
Okay, Guns and Ammo division is doing really good. If you get 4 people to sign up under you, your business starts to work for you.
We're not selling guns. We're selling the opportunity to run your own business.
That's right.
Yo, I already got 3 underneath me, Holmes.
You're on the way to becoming head distributor of your territory.
Hell yeah, that's right. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, who are having like a conference call talking about like how movie night was a bust.
Paul Blart Mall Cop got great reviews.
The sequel was much stronger in terms of character development. Yes, sir.
Man, Fusto, listen. I told you we should have gone with Magic Mike XL. It's a masterpiece with a good story arc, pendejos. Okay, back to business.
Which I thought was a pretty funny premise that could have been helped if the actors were a little better.
Ooh, boy, these guys are bad. Yeah. I mean, like, no one gives a good performance, but most of the time you can tell that's because they're stand-up comedians that are just kind of working off the top of their head with what they're giving here. These guys, I don't know where they found, particularly like the main gang leader. Like, rarely have I heard lines delivered with such apathy towards what's going on.
Hey,
It's not my fucking fault. Someone's out there with better shit. This fool took it, reverse time, just so he can go suck his own dick. What the? I can't fucking compete with that shit.
There was a couple of interesting casting choices. There's the guy that robs Molly that has very severe facial scarring on his face.
Yeah, that was like some third-degree burns kind of stuff.
Yeah, and again, you know, like, I'm not trying to, like, mock the guy or anything like that, but, like, yeah, again, this guy doesn't really seem like an actor, but I don't know. I guess they just needed, like, a really tough-looking guy, and they managed to find someone who is genuinely terrifying to look at, so I guess that, but it meshes badly with sort of the lighthearted tone that I think we're trying to go with here.
Maybe that was, like, just, yeah, that was a character that was written, not somebody who came forward to Shelley and said, hey, I got this bit that I've been working on. There's the pawn shop owner. I liked a bit of that scene. I thought that it had, like, some good ideas, like a pawn shop owner who was just maybe a little too into the material he was what is that called, valuing or evaluating?
I don't know, but he didn't know how to haggle because he kept going up.
15,
20,
25,
30.
35.
You're a brutal negotiator, sir. Okay.
Thank you. I am fearless.
Which again is a funny idea, but they kept doing it over and over again.
I like the idea of an excessive pawn shop owner who makes, like, people just uncomfortable with him, like, you know, taking a little too long to, like, offer up a price, and, you know, her friend's life is in danger, and here's this weirdo not making life easy for her. It did get to be a little bit much. I kind of like that character until, like, you know, this is a case where I thought they had, like, a decent idea, and then they ran it into the ground.
Yeah, and that's most scenes. That's most of the scenes in this movie is, like, yeah, there's a kernel of a funny idea here, but we're just gonna keep beating it into submission until the scene just isn't funny anymore. But then it does the thing, the classic comedy thing, where it keeps going, and then it's not funny anymore, but then they keep going, and then it ends on kind of like a half-hearted shrug. That's genuinely funny. Most of the endings of the scenes were funny because you could tell that they should have ended a minute ago, and then they kept going anyway, and the actors are aware that they've gone on for too long. So you're kind of in on the joke.
So, and at one point, like, Shelley hears from Rawhide that he needs to find this drug dealer.
Say Shelley? Who's Shelley?
Sorry, Molly.
Oh, Shelley's the actor. Oh, sorry, you're right. There is a Shelley in this. I'm like, is there a Shelley?
So Molly hears from Rawhide that, like, she needs to seek out this drug dealer Skullfucker because even though she can't get back the pills that she's took from Kurt Angle, this guy will be able to hook her up with, like, a close approximation. So now she's got to go find Skullfucker.
And then Skullfucker is like a single dad of 3 kids. And I think this scene was really telling and really funny because it's a 2-shot scene where the one shot is on Skullfucker, who's got a baby wrapped around him, and then the other shot is Molly sitting on the couch, and Skullfucker's other 2 kids are behind him just drawing on the wall as kids do, and then Skullfucker takes a call, and he does, like, God, just an endless bit about how the person on the other end of the telephone has annoyed him, and he is going to fuck his skull because his name is Skullfucker. Let me tell you all the ways I will fuck your skull.
What the fuck, Jesus? Where's my fucking money? You know why they call me Skullfucker? Because I fuck skulls. That's what I do. I love it. And I don't fucking stop. I'll make your fucking foreskin into a fucking yarmulke, motherfucker. It's gonna be fucking Passover every fucking day, motherfucker.
And it's very obvious that the kids weren't in the room with him because you see a scene like that and you can sort of guess that obviously the kids aren't in the room with them when all of the dirty language is happening. But this one was particularly lazy in the sense that the one kid off camera, like, turns around and says,
Give me a skull any size and weight, so I'll fuck that skull. Okay? 2 hands on the sippy cup, honey. Good job. Give me a skull socket?
And it's like, okay, that was the actor improvising that, but they didn't have footage to, like, back that up, because the kid didn't have any sort of cup in his hand at any point in time.
You know what they did have in that room? A huge spotlight casting a massive shadow behind the actors.
The lighting was bad in this? Wow, I didn't even notice. I was so transfixed on plot and the character.
Yeah, go figure. Like, my 2 cents on, like, the whole Skullfucker thing is, like, that screaming tirade of, just, like, F-bombs up the wazoo. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of that style of comedy, just, like, cursing, like, an entire blue streak. Like, you fucking fucker, I'm gonna fuck you up the fucking ass while I fuck you with your skull fucking ass.
Yeah, there's nothing funny about that. That's utterly childish. That's a 10-year-old who's just learned those words. words and is stringing them together.
It does this movie a disservice because there are funnier jokes in it.
A well-timed fuck can be one of the funniest things in any comedy, but it has to be timed properly. The context has to be right.
And there's something inherently funny about and this guy wasn't like a total like buttoned down suburban dad, but there's something very funny about like an unassuming parent figure who, you know, has that kind of inner rage in them. I mean, fucking Will Ferrell built a career around it.
Oh yeah, there's something very funny about a single dad of 3 kids who goes by the name Skullfucker and is a terrible drug dealer. Yeah, there's something inherently hilarious about that, but unfortunately, like most of the scenes in this movie, we just spent too much time on it, and no one bothered to write any jokes for this poor guy, so he just kind of had to vamp the entire time.
So Molly gets like the replacement drug. She goes back to Rawhide and they brainstorm like, how are we going to sell this? And she says, oh, I'll just put a post on Craigslist. Like, anyone looking for a good time, no judgment, come to me. And then like she gets a knock on the door from Rodney.
Rodney the Grapefruiter. And this was another joke that they just stole directly from the internet, because Rodney misread the Craigslist ad and thinks that Molly is offering sexual favors, which is not a thing Craigslist does anymore. But Rodney is like a 45-year-old virgin nerd, and he really wants Molly to grapefruit him. Now, were you aware of grapefruiting before this movie?
I just assumed it was something the movie made up because, and here's me kink shaming, it sounds really stupid.
Yeah, so grapefruiting basically is just, I mean, like, it's not even really worth giving a name.
Is it a real thing?
Yeah, no, it's just covering your dick it's just rubbing a grapefruit on your dick before your partner puts the dick in their mouth to make your dick taste like grapefruit. It doesn't really deserve its own verb, I don't think, anyway. But no, so Rodney shows Molly a YouTube video, which is a tutorial on how to grapefruit. That's an actual YouTube video.
Oh, really? That wasn't like another comedian friend of theirs?
No, that is like legitimately a video that you could search and find on YouTube. I remember because a few years ago someone showed me that video of this woman. It's funny because she is doing sort of this tutorial in earnestness, and she's very professional about it.
Now, this is my bonus technique, the grapefruit. Normally, you can only get this technique in one of my classes, but I wanted to share this with you because I believe every man should get grapefruited. When you grapefruit your man, it's going to feel as if you are giving him head and fucking him at the same time. No better feeling will he ever get than being grapefruited.
And then she takes a big black dildo, and then you put the dick in your mouth, and you go like this. And then the noise she makes, she's just like...
Now, you have to get his penis erect. So what you're going to do is just suck his dick, just like you said you were going to do. Once he's nice and erect, what you're going to do is replace...
It goes from like 0 to 60 immediately. She's just very conversational, and then in like half of a second, she's just going...
You're going to twist up and down on his shaft and suck the head at the same time.
And it's so violent. It's so... I watched that video like 3 times the first time I saw it. But yeah, it's like, did they have to get permission from her?
Yeah, I was gonna ask. We should check the credits to make sure that, like, they cite the original uploader on that, because they could be liable for stealing content.
She made it into the closing montage at the end, so...
That's true. Like, was that her actual name?
I think it was, yeah. I don't know. I don't remember if the woman in that video is a porn star or if she's just a fellatio enthusiast. Maybe she's the one who invented grapefruiting, so...
Maybe.
No! There's no inventing grapefruiting. There's rubbing a grapefruit on a dick and then deciding you're into that. That's not a thing.
Yeah, you stumble... You stumble upon something like that. You don't slave over like a desk and like 3 a.m. all this like crumpled paper around your floor, thinking to yourself, "Oh, there's got to be a way to get my dick to taste differently."
All right, what else? We got a couple of wacky cops yet again.
Oh man, I wanted to save the wacky cops. They're my fucking favorite.
Yeah. Well, I think we're basically at the end of the plot here, so we can talk about the wacky cops and then we can talk about how the movie wraps up. Yet again, we're gifted with a couple of sassy cops cops who clearly are angling for a TV show of their own. Except this time, literally.
Like, of all the bit characters that are in this, I think the premise of these two characters has the most mileage to be like a recurring character on like Parks and Recreation or Always Sunny. They're not in every episode. They show up like maybe once or twice a season, but like there's definitely, I think, like the most, you can get the most out of like the premise of these two catty actor cops.
Yes, very gay-coded cops who are both also struggling actors who have headshots.
Yeah, that's great. That's great news. Great. Okay, bye.
Breaking the case?
No, even better. I just got a call back for NCIS CSI Pittsburgh.
Great. So what's your audition for NCIS CSI?
I am a busboy.
Oh, okay. Great. So you want to run your line?
Yeah. So everyone's there. And then she just found out that, she didn't get the money for a project.
You're already complicating it.
We see them doing a honey facial. I think someone is like, we need a way to open this scene. Someone ran over to craft services, grabbed a little like jar of honey, is all like, here, rub this on your face and make it funny. And then they're just doing like improv games the entire time.
Oh, we did the wrong count.
Mirror. Sorry. Not whatever the fuck you want. Do you want to do improv?
I don't know.
You're just gonna serve and protect
I
your whole
never
life?
thought about that. I just thought that I had to do it.
But they're like ignoring calls from the squawk box. They're bickering with dispatch. Like, I love the premise. It's right up there with, the likes of Barry Zuckerkorn and Lionel Hutz and Dr. Spaceman, of all these like seemingly professional professions just filled with like these people who don't take the role seriously. I love characters like that.
Do you love characters like the super racist monk?
No.
This was a stereotype that should not have been in a 2019 movie, let me tell you.
Do you blame this character on Shelley or the actor, the guy who was playing the monk?
I blame it on everyone involved in the filming of that scene. There should have been one person on that day that said, this was a bad idea and we should rethink this entire character. So Shelley needs a weapon to confront, I guess, Kurt Angle and his goons. So I think, is it Skullfucker who sends her to the monk? I don't know. Someone sends her to the monk.
Yeah, it was Skullfucker or Rawhide.
No, it was Rawhide. I don't know. Sorry. Excuse me. How can I confuse Rawhide with Skullfucker?
We're getting our plot threads here confused. I've lost myself in this movie.
So yeah, there's just like this random monk who's like meditating in a field. Shelley goes over and says, I guess I need a weapon. And he keeps pulling out a variety of weapons. He pulls out a taser and then a knife and then like a mace with like spikes on it. With every weapon, they go into like this. This was the worst improv overall, I feel.
Yeah, it was the worst.
Because it's like, here, take this weapon. And then I'm going to. I did get some laughs when he kept yelling. There is something inherently funny about someone just yelling.
Now grunt from your uterus. The uterus grunt. No. Loosen your fallopian tube as you focus on this orange.
Can we stay out of my reproductive system for a second?
And the uterus grunt.
You gotta scream from the uterus.
It's one of those moments where I'm all like, this is terrible, and I really shouldn't be laughing at this, but I'm sorry, when someone yells uterus grunt over and over again, that's kind of funny. That gives me a chuckle. I don't feel good about it.
It ended funny enough when, like, he just resorts to giving her a rock when she's just not nailing it, so he's like, here's your weapon, and he just gives her a rock.
Weirdly enough, it is one of the only character-based scenes that introduces something that does come back later on in the movie. But anyway, let's talk about this ending, cause this movie has an ending? So Molly goes to rescue Atticus. She goes to the club where Mr. Black is holding Atticus, but she doesn't have the drugs and she doesn't have the money, so they immediately catch her, and Mr. Black, I guess, like, makes his goons pour gasoline around them, and he's going to light them on fire.
Burn them!
Sir, I tried to get you your drugs back. Just selling drugs is really hard. Isn't my emotional scarring enough?
I don't think so. Physical scar will do.
Sir, you don't have to do this. Please, just let Molly go.
Oh, how sweet. Makes me cry. Oh, wait, that's just the fumes from your burning carcasses.
Listen, if you let us go, we will do anything you want.
What I want is to have you burn for fucking my asshole.
Sir, we never meant to fuck your asshole.
Not once.
Never.
Not before, like, just because, like, oh, we gotta have character develop in our movie. Atticus confesses his love to Molly, and for no fucking reason whatsoever.
Well, no. There was a very good reason. They were about to die. You usually confess long repressed feelings towards somebody when you're about to go up in flames. I'll give it to that. It's just neither of these characters looked like, well, no, I'm sure they're friends and I'm sure they like each other, but that's the thing, is that they're clearly friends, and at the very last minute it's all like, hey, we should include like a romantic subplot, and they're just like, yeah, but like, I'm sure they're friends, but they have no romantic chemistry.
Yeah, I bet that was like one of those, this is kind of weird between, like, for the two of them to do. Her boyfriend was probably on set.
Or girlfriend, we don't know. So Kurt Angle tells his goons,
Give me something to drink. I want to make a toast to these two being burned alive.
he gives them the teapot, the empty teapot that's supposed to have the drugs in it. When he said, get me something to drink, did you think they'd come back and they'd fill the teapot that he was holding? Which probably has a lot of residue from the fucking Molly that was in it. But anyway, so they take an empty teapot and they bring back a full teapot, and Kurt Angle's like, haha, I'm gonna set you on fire now. And he takes a drink from the teapot. What happens next, Jameson?
Well, it turns out that there's some validity to their paranormal hunting business, because Kurt Angle starts convulsing, and the inside of his stomach starts glowing, and he keels over on the side of the car, and Molly and Atticus have to bring out like their ghost hunting stick and wave it at him and expel the demons.
And yeah, and they exorcise a demon, which is now inside Kurt Angle, from him, and the demon goes back into the teapot, and the teapot is hovering in the air, and that's when Molly pulls out the rock that the racist monk gave her earlier, and she throws the rock at the teapot, and I guess the ghost is dead, and then the movie abruptly ends. Yep. Right there, in the middle of that scene, the movie ends, and then we get 10 minutes of a montage that just shows characters from earlier in the movie doing the Animal House thing, where it freeze frames and says, this character went on to fuck a donkey or something. I don't know, they didn't say that, but like, wow, where the fuck did that ending come from?
Yeah, you're not exaggerating when you say that every character gets like ones that were maybe had like less, like a minute of screen time, like they got like the porno casting director, like he got one. Yeah, that was weird as fuck.
And then the credits start rolling, and then we see even more outtakes that they give us like a character name. It'll say like Kurt Angle, and then it goes to like an outtake of like Kurt Angle in the car. But it's not like a funny outtake. It's like, it's the type of outtake where he said the line kind of wrong. Or they'll show like an improv scene that I think they wanted to insert into the movie, but it's like, this doesn't really work. Yeah, we'll throw it into the end credits. Like, yeah, this movie isn't even an hour and a half long, and it is padded like a motherfucker.
Yeah. Like, this is kind of why, like, most movie productions have, like, a producer and a script supervisor and someone overseeing the plot, because otherwise...
This movie really needed a script supervisor. This movie needed a script, is what it needed.
Yeah, because, like, otherwise it's just anarchy on film.
Do you think the ending of this movie was supposed to tie in to the beginning of this movie?
I kind of appreciate that it did. That's the thing. Like, this is what makes me feel like the original characters were supposed to be like these bit parts on like another established television show, and like, hey, Comic-Con, now like they're getting their own movie. Because, like, everyone on the TV show knows that they're full of shit and they're not real ghost hunters. They're getting their own movie, and everyone knows they're a joke. They're not real paranormal investigators. But here's the crazy twist at the end of the movie. Here's why we got a big budget. There are real ghosts, and there are demons, and they are good at their job, and they are expelling demons. That's what I think the payoff was.
But what was that scene at the beginning of the movie? That is still genuinely confusing to me. What happened at the beginning of the movie with the Chinese woman who disappears?
Well, she went into a teapot, and then they had to throw Chekhov's rock at it.
So she went into a teapot. So the beginning of this movie opens in a location that we don't visit again, that we don't know where it is in relation to any of the other characters, and we have a woman praying at an altar, and somehow her spirit, through the act of praying, ends up in the teapot. And then at the end of the movie, Kurt Angle gives his teapot to a goon. The goon leaves, comes back with the other teapot, and then Kurt Angle drinks the ghost of this Chinese woman. Precisely. Oh, I don't know how I could have gotten confused in the first place. It makes perfect sense.
I'm sure if you were in the writer's room and you were smoking as much weed as these comedians were, it would make total sense to you in the end.
This was a very weird start to WrestleMania.
Oh, I forgot it was WrestleMania.
Sorry, WrestleMania.
WrestleMania. That's a very good point. You're a host, Kaz Lesgard.
Would you recommend Chasing Molly?
Not all of it. No.
This is a hard one, man. I really want to. I really want to because I can feel the independent spirit behind the making of this movie, but the amount of things that I liked about it aren't equal to the moments that I think are just a tremendous waste of time.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the Netflix show The Characters, or I Think You Should Leave?
I've seen a few episodes of The Characters, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that. If you ever wanted to show somebody that one, or that show, and you're just like, oh, you gotta watch this one. This one's the best. This one's my favorite.
I've heard very good things about I Think You Should Leave. I should.
It's really good. I like that show. But yeah, it's very much like, here are these like isolated vignettes. Just watch this scene. You know, like we tend to recommend that process a lot. Try to find clips on YouTube.
Yeah, I wish there was one amazing scene in this movie. I wish there was one really good scene that I could recommend. Just try and find like this one bit that just had like enough decent belly laughs in it. But it never got there. There was just, like, these are all very clearly talented comedians. I'm gonna say talented, but, like, put that in a caveat that it's like a sliding scale. Some are obviously more talented than other ones, and it's very clearly just an entire movie of them trying to come up with funny things to say or do in the situation. And every once in a while, they hit it. But it's not enough. It's not enough, I'd say, to... But on the other hand, if any of the scenarios we just described sound appealing to you, the movie is only an hour and 20 minutes. Yeah. You could watch worse.
You'll get some laughs out of them. Like, some of the characters are pretty good. Like, some of the jokes are pretty good. And, like, Hollywood TV producers, if you're listening, and I know you are, find a vehicle to shoehorn these crazy cop characters into, like, a sitcom or something. Because they would be delightful as, like, sort of just reoccurring bit characters on The Office or whatever, or similar shows.
Get an actor-cop spinoff going on here. I mean, and also, like, fuck, this movie came out last year. Like, who knows? We're sitting here and we're talking about this. Like, Shelley Pack could have her moment. Or, like, one of, like, the other comedians in the movie. We could, like, 5 years from now, we could be watching something. We'd be all like, where the hell have I seen that guy before? And it would be all like,
he's the skull fucker!
They actually made something out of it, yeah. It'll be like the worst one. It'll be like Pawn Shop Guy. Pawn Shop Guy will go on to be like super famous.
That's usually how it goes.
And we can say we were there at the beginning.
Do you think Felicia Day and Kurt Angle appreciate being in this movie? I think Kurt Angle, like a lot of wrestlers, is probably a very good sport about this sort of things.
I think Kurt Angle enjoys being in things, so, and he's not in the WWE anymore, so he's gotta fill that time. Gotta fill those days with something, so... Well, alright, well, what an auspicious start to WrestleMania! Oh boy, like what could...
This is what you waited all year for, fans.
What could be around the corner for us next? Oh boy. WrestleMania! Oh boy. Alright, cool. Anything you've seen recently, Jameson, you want people to check out?
Check out. Going through like a lot of my, I'll get around to it lists of Netflix movies, and I've been a little bit disappointed by what I've seen so far.
Yeah, that happens sometimes too. Like, I'll go through like a string of them in the hopes that I'll have something to recommend on this portion of the podcast, and like after like 4 movies that I've watched, I'm all like, man, I didn't like any of those.
Yeah, like some of them I was a little underwhelmed by. Some of them I thought, like, I saw Ready Player One and The Terminal, and those were 2 Spielberg movies that I had really wanted to see for a while. Ready Player One I thought was ridiculous.
Yeah, Ready Player One is not a good. It's not a good adaptation. But that's okay, because the book is worse.
Well, I just, like, having worked in the video game industry for the last, 10 years of my life now, I can tell you right now that, like, these keys are so hard to find. No one's ever been able to find them by cracking these clues, and then the guy finds, like, the first clue by driving backwards in a racetrack. Guarantee that, like, do you know how good, like, someone would have found that on the...
That's one of the first things someone would try.
I know, right? Like, do you know how fucking, like, speedrunners are able to, like, glitch out the games and, like, find all these exploits? Like, those fucking keys would have been found, like, the day the game came out.
Well, what do you expect? It's a movie about, like, today's culture that's made by like a 60-year-old man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, my focus got thrown off a little bit. My cat just farted. He's never done that before, but holy shit, that was funny.
I enjoyed that more than Ready Player One.
Oh my god. I was going to recommend something too, but you know what? Nothing I have seen in the past week is better than that.
Well, there was something that I did want to say I really enjoyed, but now I don't want to have a cat fart as the intro to it because I actually really like this thing.
All right, go ahead.
Oh, all right. Well, now with that awesome lead-in, so when I was looking for like a video game that I wanted to just sort of like revisit, because I said I was going to go back through like the Legend of Zelda catalog, I fell back in love with this somewhat obscure game called Skies of Arcadia that was on the GameCube.
Oh, I remember playing that back in the day. Yeah, it's a great.
And on the Dreamcast, that is such a delightful game. And I'm not huge into like turn-based RPGs, but like the characters are so upbeat and inspirational and happy-go-lucky. And like it's these sky pirates in this world of floating islands, so the world is just open and vast, and the music is swelling. In a time where like we're all like kind of in lockdown and like not seeing anybody, like it's just what I needed. It's like a breath of fresh air.
Sega made really good RPGs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes they did. So that's a big recommendation for Skies of Arcadia if you can find that game. How about yourself? Can you recommend anything?
Do you ever watch a movie and you think you've discovered something amazing and you can't wait to tell everyone, and then you go online and you find out that the movie has like a tremendous cult following that you've never heard of before? That was my experience. I watched The Slumber Party Massacre. It is one of the best slasher movies I've seen in a long time, and it is from the 1980s. If I had seen this movie when I was 10, it would have blown my prepubescent mind, because it is a bunch of buxom high school girls who go to a slumber party at their one friend's house, and then a killer breaks in, and he's the driller killer, and he has a big electric drill, cordless drill, that he's running around, and he's drilling through people's heads, and there's buckets of blood, and it opens up with like a 5-minute long shower scene where the girls are just soaping themselves up. It's the most exploitive, titillating slasher movie from the 80s, and written and directed by women.
Oh, cool.
Really interesting. And then I went in and I looked up the history of it and everything, and yeah, it was written by one woman and it was directed by another woman. The director went on, it was really interesting, the director went on to like write the screenplays for like Beethoven and like other kid movies. But yeah, I read like one interview with the director is like...
Oh wait, sorry, I was thinking of Amadeus. You mean Beethoven the dog, right?
Yes, Beethoven the dog, yes. But yeah, and I read like one interview with the director of this movie, and she's just like, yeah, I was just like an independent filmmaker in the 80s. There weren't a lot of like jobs for like women filmmakers back then, and people have complained over the years that I'm a hypocrite and a sellout for making like a super exploitive movie where the girls all have their tits out all the time and they're being like killed in horrible ways. And my response to that is basically, fuck you. I'm gonna make money, and like I really respected that choice. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, The Slumber Party Massacre is an awesome slasher movie. I think it's one of the...
Yeah, that sounds like a delightfully cheesy, over the top.
But it's also just genuinely unnerving and very scary. Like they do something really smart, which very early on they show you what the killer looks like, and he's just a dude. He's just a dude in a van with a drill. And like chasing people around, and you can see him coming. You can see him running after them, and there's something so fucking scary about just seeing a normal looking dude running towards you, and you know when he catches you, he's gonna kill you. Yeah, no, I totally recommend that. Go check that out.
All right, will do.
All right, cool. All right, well, that does it for this episode. Join us next week for more WrestleMania!
Yeah.
Yep.
This has been co-host Jameson Rafter.
And I, of course, am your host, Kaz Lesgard. Signing out. You stay frosty, deputy dogs.
Yeah, what he said.